Right, we are live.
Yes, welcome to Trends in AI, the April edition, very special edition, because we are live from the expo floor at Hannover Messe.
Yes, very different background, but the same content with a bit of a twist.
Well, it's certainly flavored by what we have seen here at Hannover Messe.
Yeah, so let's get right into it.
So we have the usual mix of new model releases, a few papers with a definite industrial automation kind of twist, and the latest news, and maybe even a bit of gossip.
Yeah, some gossip as always. But yeah, so just to give some context, what is Hannover Messe? Should we start with that?
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
So it's April 3rd today, and um, I want to start with this tweet because obviously yesterday, right, Hannover Messe is all about trade. Yesterday, the U.S. announced major tariffs on
Everyone in the world.
on global trade, on everybody, and it basically created quite a lot of uncertainty and doubt in trade. Not so much for AI, that's not directly impacted, but certainly for traditional industrial goods from Europe, which are a big, U.S. is a big export market. So I really like this tweet by Peter Bloom. Peter Bloom is a Amsterdam-based AI researcher known for his very elegant transformers implementation. He said, well, it's actually not the US plunging the world into a trade war. They're plunging themselves into a trade war. The rest of us can just trade with each other instead. And that's exactly what's happening here in Hanover. So what is the Hannover Messe? For those of you who have never been, is, I think, the industrial trade fair that's the largest in the world's leading industry show. You could say it's the German industrial equivalent of the Oktoberfest. I think that's the kind of best explanation. There's 130,000 people here for the whole week, with more than 4,000 exhibitors from literally every country in the world. And just to give you a little bit of impression, Dinos, you walked the show. What was your kind of first impression?
I can't even say that I walked the show because the place is so huge, and I think these pictures don't do it justice. But it's really a huge place where you can find all sorts of kind of the state of the art in manufacturing industry, kind of pneumatics, bearings, manufacturing, factory components.
20 mega size halls, each with their distinct theme, and basically one is focused on hydraulics, another on powertrains, another on valves. But there's also quite a lot of very large industrial giants. Some of them you might not know so well. So there are many of these European high-tech giants like Igus, Beckhoff, SEW, Eurodrive. Probably not very well-known names across the globe, but they're market leaders in their field, and they're all over.
Right, they're not very much customer-facing, but everyone in the industry probably knows them because of the components that they sell and use on a daily basis.
Yeah, and interestingly, I mean, in the light of the global trade tensions, Canada is the official trading partner of the Hannover Messe this year. So there are Canada pavilions in almost every one of those halls, with Canadian research institutes, startups, and established companies presenting. And I think that's very much in this spirit of the rest of us can just trade with each other instead.
Right, and I did see a lot of other guest countries as well. I did see China, I did see Turkey, Indonesia, all of other places. I guess
there was a Dutch pavilion.
Dutch one as well.
So we are here also with a booth with Zeta Alpha. We had a presentation with our partner and customer Festo. And Festo is actually known as having one of the coolest booths of the Hannover Messe. It's a huge pavilion of 2 stories where they exhibit all their fantastic and famous innovation in automating production systems
For the
and
past 100 years.
yeah. Um, and obviously, the European and especially German industry has had a bit of a um, has been a bit lagging in technology adoption and digitalization and the embracing of AI. People in Europe tend to see risks rather than opportunities sometimes. But I do want to highlight that Festo is definitely one of the leading examples where a 100-year-old German industrial giant embraces a um, innovative AI startup like us, Zeta Alpha, to really drive AI adoption faster than anybody else in the industry. Um, AI is at the centerpiece, right? How many times did you see the word AI on
A lot
a
of times.
pavilion?
Yeah, a lot of
Oh,
times, even in companies that did not expect to have AI integration because they're very hardware oriented. And
right. Yeah. So chatbots, agents, but also the more traditional sort
machine
of
learning, right?
AI, robotics, computer vision, sensors, and predictive maintenance kind of
Yeah, fault
applications,
detection.
fault detection. These are very much at the heart of the industrial uses of AI. Even so, a pavilion from a German company called Schunk, advertising humanoid robotics. So it's not only startups that build these kind of things from scratch. Here you see Litmus, which does edge data um, um, uh, AI for industrial applications. But of course, there's also a whole way to um, highlight all the AI offerings from the global cloud giants like Microsoft, AWS, and Google, which have huge booths dedicated to AI in industry. Can you, um, and one of the biggest booths is Siemens. Did you go there?
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to miss. They
They,
have even guided tours every, I don't know, 30 minutes.
they have a guided tour of their booth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there's about a gazillion different applications. Of course, Siemens is a real industrial technology giant with almost 300 billion euro market cap and many different applications areas. Siemens was very proud to have won the Hannover Messe Hermes Award. Um,
So what is this about?
Yeah, so Hermes Award is basically the main innovation award. Very competitive, um, um, very tough competition, and they won this award with their industrial co-pilot. So that's kind of an agentic system, and we were fortunate enough to interview one of the leaders at Siemens, who will show a little piece of the interview, and who discusses this co-pilot. Um, so. Yeah, with this short preview of the Hannover Messe, we're gonna come back to that in a bit and show you a bit of the Siemens interview and other interviews that we did on the trade show floor. But also, don't want to forget the regular AI news and model releases because it's been going as fast as ever.
Correct. And I'm sure a lot of people were excited this month to see a bit of a shake-up again in the leaderboard.
Pretty big one, right?
Yeah.
It's like 50 ELO points over the
Across the
previous
board
gen.
even, yeah. So we're talking, of course, about Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Google's push back to the top of the LM6 arena. It's, I think, continuing on the scaling and post-training paradigm on the same Gemini
and it's a
architecture.
reasoning model as well, right? And,
So I think
and a
it's a-
very, very large one,
Yeah,
probably.
I think it's a combined reasoning and non-thinking model. They did both into one, following kind of Cloud 3.7.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we can see here on the right that they benchmarked on knowledge-intensive benchmarks like GPQA, but also on reasoning benchmarks where you can have a boost from thinking about the problem like mathematics with AIM 2025 here. Yeah, so
So it beats
OpenAI O3 Mini. on reasoning. I mean, across the board, it seems very competitive. I
Yeah.
do see here that Grok 3 seems to be also pretty good in this benchmark, but overall, also on the humanities last exam, is kind of pushing a bit the frontier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the most big jump that we saw came here in the
LLMs
arena.
Yeah.
And specifically just because everything else is around 1400 and we see these being almost at 1450.
Yeah, so just very recently we saw GPT 4.5 is not doing that well actually in LLMs
In this arena, yeah. And I mean, I think also the presentation of this model was not, okay, we're not going to hill climb the benchmarks. It's
Yeah.
more about pre-training. And if you go in a bit in the next slide, we can also see that across the board on different kind of benchmarks like coding, math, hard prompts, instruction following, we see that Gemini 2.5 is very competitive.
Yeah, number one in
across the
all
board.
of the more detailed benchmark. What I find amazing is that that these sort of you know the models which are not like O3, like very long thinking models, have seem to have caught up pretty much with these very long inference models.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a criticism that 2.5 Pro is a bit verbose, so
Yeah.
it's more people would like it to be more concise in some problems, but it's definitely not like super trained to only do this reasoning trace. It's kind of more dynamic. It can adapt to the
Yeah.
problem.
And it's a multimodal model,
Correct.
right?
So it's continuing on all the Gemini properties that people have gotten used to.
Yeah.
So it's multimodal natively.
I think consistently Google is being underestimated. I mean, they've had some trouble getting their act together in shipping models.
Yeah, also advertising them better.
I think their communication is still a little bit, not on par with the major sort of independent AI labs, but they have a huge advantage, right? Both the amount of data that they can throw at the problem from the search engine and from all their other properties, but also the sheer scale of compute that they have in house.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. You can try this model for free, and no one else does this. Not OpenAI, not Anthropic.
Well, I'm repeating myself, but they are not paying the 70% NVIDIA tax, right? So Gemini, a very strong new entry in the leaderboards from Google. And of course, the competition doesn't stop here. So nobody's expecting Anthropic and OpenAI and even Grok to give up. This was pretty viral on the social media.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure if this was on purpose, but this model dropped on the same day as Gemini 2.5 Pro.
I think it was definitely on purpose. It was there to dampen a little bit the shock of that leaderboard loss.
Yeah, so OpenAI was pretty fast to respond with something that they actually showcased almost a year ago.
I think they already had this on the shelf and were just waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, so this is about 4.0 with native image generation.
Yeah.
So this model was already advertised to be multimodal natively, but users could never generate pictures. Before, you would have DALL-E integration, but now the model itself and whatever it means for the in-context learning abilities, it natively understands images both in input and in the output. And yeah, they kind of advertise that this model is very precise with writing letters on the text, on the images. And yeah, a few of the examples that they have on the website, on the product release, is this.
This is very good with this cartoon here,
a
right?
comic strip, or it has a lot of word knowledge as well. So you can see here, just generate an infographic about a known physics.
I mean, it's integrated. So can you explain like one or two sentences, how is this different from the earlier DALL-E integration?
Right, so DALL-E is a diffusion model. And what is different with 4.0 is that it is basically an autoregressive model. So that means it takes text as input or any modality as input, and then it will try to generate basically patches from top to bottom. Obviously, we don't know if it's exactly the same or if there's some also diffusion step involved, but people have seen, for example, diffusion struggles with consistency overall, while autoregressive models don't have this because they generate top to bottom or left to right.
Yeah.
So this model just generates the output image patches directly.
Yeah, so it's fully integrated, so there can also be some reasoning going on within the thinking of the model
Yeah,
while
so
it's generating it.
naturally all the conversation can fit into the same
And all the
outputs.
patches align very well with the actual sort of verbalization of the thought.
Yeah, there's reasoning in context learning, all of these benefits. Yeah, there was Gemini Flash that also had this output, but I think this is a bigger model and we can see it in the consistency that it has in the outputs.
All right, and this was then the viral hit, right? Upload your photo, so you can give it an image as an input, and then give instructions to manipulate it. So the Studio Ghibli anime, there was a lot of uproar among Studio Ghibli fans for, basically stealing the artistic style, and but yeah, this was very popular. I tried it a little bit myself, not with Studio Ghibli, but this is our booth where we are broadcasting from right now. And yeah, this is a photo of the empty state of the booth. And I wanted to put something on social media. So yeah, it doesn't really look very attractive. So let's put some people in it. So I asked GPT-4o to draw some typical Hannover Messe kind of participants in it. And it does that pretty well. I mean, it's a full room now. And there are this kind of business people, a bit of technical with backpacks. But if you look at the details, the faces here,
they're a bit jumbled up, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
text specifically, which was supposed to be one of the strong points.
The text was in the original image here, the Zeta Alpha advanced AI solutions for the enterprise. It made that advanced blah, 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 blah. So yeah, but especially sort of the monster-like faces even make it not fit for purpose in some sense.
Yeah,
right?
and I think this is also why they advertise with this anime kind of generations, which is easier to get around.
Yeah,
with.
Exactly. All right, but it's a very cool product release. But I think the claim that it's like ready to replace human creators for commercial art is not there yet. All right, another OpenAI use, which kind of defensive, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of involving all of the industry.
Yeah, you could say that the 4.0 images are also defensive, but it's a very positive one. So last month in the Agents episode, we commented very positively about the broad adoption of MCP, the Model Context Protocol. So can you kind of summarize the main points of what this is?
Right. So the Model Context Protocol, it's not that well defined of a name because it's kind of implying only a context, but in reality, it's like a open specification of how the models can communicate with services to give it context or prompts, but also specifically tools and other services like database access or
so it's basically
a
wrapper around third-party tools and other agents that can be reused by an agent, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an open API standard for LLMs.
It's a spec of the API for LLMs, but it also has a context layer, right? So it keeps context. That's what makes it different from many other sort of API frameworks. And it's become hugely popular among followers. And now OpenAI has actually, would you call it surrendered? Or,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, right? They cannot now push their own protocol, so they adopted it, which is great, right? Open standards are great. And even Google now
is thinking about doing
thinking about it, right?
As we can see from Sundar's post, to MCP or not to MCP?
That's the question.
A moderate question.
Did you see the outcome of the poll in the?
Yeah, I mean, some people were kind of asking Google to just innovate and think of something better, but I'm not sure if that's as easy to make than everyone else adopt the new thing instead of just.
You can adopt it and innovate.
Yeah, of course.
Which is
it's an open standard, so people can just propose the necessary modifications. Like one of the main missing ones was authorization. Kind of have this enterprise grade stability that people need from a framework that gives access to LLMs. You know where that can go wrong.
All right. So a couple other notable model releases.
Right. So we had DeepSeek stealing the spotlight for a few days again. This was just an incremental update on the existing V3 model, and I think it was mostly post-training oriented. So they claim to have brought back a lot of the novelties from the R1 paper, the GRPO method, and all of that kind of reasoning data
Yeah.
sets back to the V3 model.
Yeah, so some pretty big increases here on
Reasoning, math.
24. That's math reasoning, right? Almost 20% percentage points increase. So
Yeah, I mean that is kind of suspicious, but
And-
we might get back to this a bit later.
true. But what's the main technique employed here?
Yeah, so it's
To achieve
just this synthetic data generated from the base model using reinforcement learning, and then just taking that data, fitting it back to it.
Yeah. So supervised fine tuning driven by the reinforcement
Right.
learning based model.
And of course mixed with all of the traditional RLHF data to make it a general purpose model.
So another model from China, definitely keeping the race very hot there, and another one is QN.
Yeah, so they came back with not the first release of an Omni model, but this is also open source. And what is different from this is that it handles a lot of modalities, both as input and as output. So as you can see here in these nice graphs from the blog post, this model now can input both video, audio, images, everything as input, but also it has a lot of modalities as output. So it predicts the codecs and everything dynamically. So it detects on its own what to generate, and it's not like a kind of an ensemble of specific architectures.
Yeah, and also images as output.
Right.
And it's open source. So basically stealing the thunder from the Ghibli studio.
I did not see that many generations with it, but I think we have a benchmark right next. It compares with a lot of specialized models, open source at least. So with Gemini 1.5 Pro, with previous modality-specific models, this one can do all of them, and it seems to be kind of on par with even humans on some benchmarks on speech generation. And yeah, it has a very weird comparison with Gemini 1.5 here, but I would expect it's pretty good.
But I think what I see is that the biggest improvements are on audio, really, right?
Yeah, and that's the focus, and also that it's doing all of them under one architecture rather than building specialized encoders and decoders.
All right, so for those of you who just tuned in for the first time and you're wondering what do we do at Zeta Alpha, a little commercial break. So basically with Zeta Alpha, we are building a platform for knowledge-intensive companies in industry, in chemical and life sciences, in manufacturing, but also even in other knowledge-intensive areas to use AI to leverage it on internal confidential information, proprietary data sets and archives, so that you can answer really complicated questions and ground the answers in proprietary information. And here at the trade show in Hannover, we have actually officially launched a new full chat mode. Now you could say this is a small step for mankind because it's kind of a regular chat application. But it's a big step for our customers because now they have a fully secure on-prem solution that covers not only more exotic agent and RAG use cases, but also kind of the regular day-to-day chat type of functionality.
Yeah, and I mean the integration with the platform and its capabilities that we offer is quite significant because you can build very customized solutions now.
Yeah, so I think we have a short video.
Right.
Let's see if we can play that. So here you see basically the different customized agents that are available
by default,
like deep research, for example, or chatting with your own data, or chatting with web data, or chatting with the scientific literature. So we have a question that is being typed in, and the system does dynamic retrieval and generates answers from that. Searching.
Yeah, you can follow up, search for more information, even upload
file. Your own files. So yeah, pretty much what you would expect from a state-of-the-art chat solution. And what I really like is that you can also save the results, particular outputs that the model generates, and export them as a PDF or Markdown, and then kind of move on with the creative process from there. All right, that was the commercial break. So let's get back to kind of our theme of today. So beginning of this year, we made these predictions. I think we got a couple of them already in the pocket. One of them was that AI agents will have a measurable impact on the labor market. And being here at the Hannover Messe, the main industry show in Europe or the world even, I think that's kind of the right vibe here to sense all of that. If you see how AI agents are almost appearing at every booth, I've heard some people be critical. It's like AI agents just a hype word, and it's it's just being used as marketing. But we've seen quite some of them which are real, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's something to notice is that it's even very big companies that have already started bringing them very close to production or even in production. So
Yeah.
it's not just
Yeah,
about prototyping anymore.
there were really product launches and even products which are already being
case
used.
studies with clients. Yeah.
So let's dive into that with something not here from the Hannover Messe, but a very nice paper which kind of looks at this collaboration between man and machines. It's a recent paper by Ethan Mollick and others, people from Harvard and a couple of other sort of business schools, right? And they did this study at Procter and Gamble on real kind of knowledge-based work tasks. So they found that AI boosts performance both in productivity and in creativity also, right?
So yeah, and it's also another interesting aspect that they studied is also, does it help you as a standalone individual contributor, or does it also help you in a team dynamic where you can kind of exchange information with other team members, or how can you kind of share that message?
So can you explain a little bit the setting of the study?
Right. So what they studied here is whether we see the quality of the generated solutions, either as an individual contribution or as a team, comparing usage of AI versus just doing it on your own.
So basically, they're embedding an AI agent which plays a certain role, right? They're like technical team members and more commercial team, business-like team members, and they're trying to innovate a product.
To create a solution.
To create a solution or a problem, or create a new product category or a new variation on an existing product, and either is an individual with an AI assistant, without an AI assistant, or a team where an AI agent is playing a particular role.
Yeah, right? Either as a coordinator or a contributor to the team. Yeah. And we see that the obvious takeaway is that AI helps. But I find really interesting in this bottom figure, which is similar task as the first one, but they're measuring specifically if the quality of the solution is actually in the top 10.
Yeah, if it's like a top-notch solution.
Top-notch solution. Then there we clearly see that a team with an AI enhancement is really much more powerful, even as, I think even doubling that of an individual or a team with no AI.
Yeah, so this really ties in with one of my own beliefs that it's not so much about just productivity gains or even like raising the quality of the average, but AI use in decision-making processes in companies is actually about de-risking against your blind spots, right? If you have an assistant which is able to just bring in missing pieces of the equation into the discussion, you're essentially guaranteed to find better solution because you have more information at your disposal, and you just significantly reduce the risk of missing a crucial assumption.
Yeah, because not everyone has the same background knowledge versus an AI which has a very good and diverse understanding of the world and things that people would have to kind of combine to get together.
Yeah, in both the technical side and the commercial side.
Yeah, and this is actually, I think, the second one that they found. So you can have cases where people are more technical versus they're more product or sales oriented, and you really need the collaboration to get the desired result. But they saw that with this experiment, the technicality of the solution, so the feasibility of the product was actually, there was a big difference when not using an AI versus when the non-technical people were supplied with this AI collaboration and assistance, they were able to match what the technical people could do.
So basically the AI can provide this complementarity and therefore provide more sound solution.
Yeah, and I think an important also factor that can confirm
people like working with AI.
It's fun to use it, and it kind of lessens the burden in some areas where people might not be as enthusiastic about.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to the next kind of impact of AI on work. Recently, Arthur D. Little together with the Netherlands Academy of Engineering, and I think the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering published an interesting report called Moving Innovation Forward, where they kind of look at this exact same problem, but really in the area of hard technical innovation, science-inspired R&D, um, product development, which is very multifaceted and needs to deal with complex constraints, both from the material side, from the patent side, from the progress of technology, but also from like social and ethical constraints. And we have interviewed Michael Kolk, who's the managing partner for innovation at Arthur D. Little, and one of the and the first author of the report. And yeah, he you have to watch the interview. It's on YouTube, and basically, what he's saying is that the main impact of AI is in managing complexity.
Right.
Right. So basically, uh, the boundary of what we can do as human teams in product innovation is constrained by our individual information processing capacity. No matter how smart the team members are, they just simply cannot process all the information about all the different factors together. So, in the interview, we concluded that if AI is the solution, what's the problem? And it's the increasing complexity of the world, and that plays especially in engineering and science. Um,
Yeah, so just like two figures that were in the report that I found really interesting. So AI really benefits uh, companies in domains like chemical discovery, industrial manufacturing, product development, and in all these domains we see a lot of time saved, a lot of complexity reduced, and efficiency also of the whole process, but also the efficiency of the humans that are working with the problem.
yeah. So here's a kind of point by point heat map of different use cases where you see a positive impact, and yeah, it's pretty diverse, but basically all kinds of roles in teams, ranging from product owners or decision makers to individual contributors and engineers, are impacted in a positive way uh, by the benefits of AI assistance.
Yeah, when kind of developing a solution around their expertise and their persona.
So yeah, that's a worthwhile report to read, and check out the interview with Michael Kalk on our
YouTube channel.
Trends in AI YouTube channel. So
Yeah,
yeah,
let's bring it
moving
back
back.
to the Hannover Messe. Yeah, and you mentioned Siemens and how they have this industrial foundation model and the kind of whole ecosystem around developing AI for the factory.
I thought this was a photo of their booth, but that's not. I now
I
see
think
it.
it's quite accurate of the diversity of the stuff that they have there. Right.
Yeah. So basically, Siemens is pretty far, and that's I think why they received this Hermes award in kind of holistic GenAI assistance for engineers in industrial environments, in manufacturing environments, but also they had a lot of work which is about discovering new materials, discovering new
Pharmaceuticals.
compounds in pharma, etc. Right?
Yeah, and I think this is a really nice diagram from the website. They start with even some very basic and traditional AI problems like planning or organization and typical knowledge copilots, but
Yeah.
they have even very kind of innovative approaches to even design. So it helps in the brainstorming process and also just taking a text as input and generating some proof of concepts for the designers and the engineers to kind of approve or reject for refinement, and even the industrial foundation model.
Well,
Which-
it's not released yet.
Yeah, it's not released?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the interview that we'll be highlighting in a bit, there's a little bit of information about it, but they're still slightly fuzzy about it.
All right.
But apparently, they're training a foundational model for this kind of industrial applications. So let's have a look at a little fragment of the interview with Boris Scharinger. He's the AI strategist for Siemens Digital. and he was kind enough to sit with us at this booth here yesterday to explain a little bit about the technology, why they won the Hermes Award for the Copilot. What are the main complexities that you have run into in developing this kind of industrial copilot? How is it different than just a chatbot with some tools?
Exactly. And that's the right question to ask. And I think that's also the reason why we have been awarded Hermes Awards, right? AI by itself is beautiful, exciting, and all of that stuff, but the least it is industrial grade. We have a lot of elements in AI that comes from consumer markets that are not really accepted in industry.
So what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, let me say, first of all, production doesn't have an undo button. So whatever we do in production needs to be tight and needs to be exact and precise. AI is exciting. AI is probabilistic. Engineers want it to be deterministic. Now, with a given input, like a prompt, create me a automation project for a conveyor belt. I'd like to have an output that I can rely on. And it's the quality of the code that the Copilot produces, but it's also the repeatability. They have the same prompt, I'd like to have the same output. Now, if you look at LLM providers, for example, OpenAI, they change model weights overnight. Okay, that can happen, right? Automation engineers hate it because with a given input, they like to see the same output. So we have established a lot of mechanisms, whether it's how the RAG layer is designed, whether it's knowledge graph technology, whether it's an automated testing pipeline to take these uncertainties out of how that model and that copilot works. So we provide a solution that is deterministic enough, so to say, to be accepted by engineers.
Right. So we hear about kind of what are the complexities in industry and in manufacturing, where just the pure language models cannot just reliably generate outputs that can be used later on in a multi-pipeline process.
Yeah, I think the main problem that he's alluding to is that you need a lot more reliability in industrial applications, whether it's keeping within guardrails or replicability.
Exactly.
That engineers expect, right? You
want the same input to give the same output every time.
You cannot afford risk and variation in a factory setting, basically. What are the main? So let's dive into some other recent use cases in the industry. This one you found, optimizing energy efficiency with predictive AI.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a pretty traditional use of AI in predictions and detecting kind of the optimal allocation of resources. So this one is from Schneider Electric, where they have a case study with one of their clients. So this is a service that they sell with that has AI capabilities to detect and reduce the use of energy in large factories and energy plants.
How?
Yeah, so how they do it, they have this EcoStruxure Industrial Advisor, and through a lot of data analysis, collection with sensors and algorithms that kind of simulate and predict and recommend suggestions on how to change and allocate the load more efficiently, they are able to reduce the energy demand of the overall plant.
So without any sort of changes in the actual machinery of the plant,
right.
Just by measuring the patterns and optimizing the utilization.
Exactly, yeah. So this is a very important for companies that have a lot of sustainability efforts on reducing their energy use or being carbon neutral.
Yeah. Well, industry is responsible for about 30% of global CO2 emissions. So definitely very relevant, this. And in the automotive industry, there's quite a lot of interest in AI, and it's not just for self-driving cars, right?
Right. NVIDIA is also pushing very hard on getting their AI kind of full stack into the manufacturing and in the factories. So this collaboration with BMW, it's a very interesting data set, actually. So they collaborate to produce this SORDI data set, which we can think of as ImageNet for industrial pictures and classes.
Yeah.
So they collected a bunch of synthetic and photorealistic pictures of a lot of components that you see often in a factory, and then they use this data set to train models so they can do like fault detection or common bounding box recognition around things in the factory.
Yeah, so it's not a self-driving car, but it's a self-driving factory.
Exactly.
In some sense.
Yeah. So
Or
yeah,
at least the perceptual
yeah,
part for that.
one of the example use cases that BMW is using is to identify defects in their own product line.
I think Tesla could use this product. All right, and this is also about quality control from Rockwell.
Yeah, I mean, this is also kind of more traditional quality control and fault detection. So actually Rockwell Automation has a lot of components in the whole pipeline where you detect the defects, try to do some analysis with generative AI as well on what caused it, and kind of send it as a feedback loop. So the part gets analyzed, gets simulated, and then gets sent back to fix the issue and ensure a good quality of the product in the
Yeah.
production line.
Do you think these kind of applications are already like being upgraded to the latest state-of-the-art, vision language model or multimodal models, or is this still like the previous generation of CNN-based?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of a mix. So when I was researching this for what is actually happening, I've seen a lot of YOLO models, but also some VLMs with Qwen-based, a lot of open source as well, or even GPT-4v4o and so on.
Interesting. Chinese models in the production line. That might be controversial soon. The concept of digital twin is, of course, also one of the huge pillars of digitalization in the industrial space. So, can you explain in one sentence what is a digital twin?
Right. So it's a very traditional concept as well, but I do expect it to be kind of modernized with modern AI. But in principle, a digital twin is kind of all of the data required to simulate a real manufacturing component in a virtual environment or in a simulation.
Running a complex physical system in simulation.
Yeah. So you do this by having a lot of sensors that detect a lot of moving variables from the system, so you can run a lot of simulations, kind of predict when something might go wrong based on the normal behavior of the model. So this is what has been happening for a few years now. I think it's been a trend in Hannover Messe in all of industry for a few years. But yeah, as this McKinsey report shows, this tech stack is getting more and more complex, and a lot of places where AI can do help. And
so, what is the main sort of innovation there for in terms of AI?
Right. So I think a lot of the technology that is being used, it has the potential to bring higher accuracy.
I get it. Everybody believes in digital twin as a key component in reliability of manufacturing systems, in fault detection, in predictive maintenance, and many of these applications. But what is what is sort of how is AI changing that?
Well, this is, I think, where AI can help is also a bit in more the traditional sense of doing a lot of simulations and in computational theory. Also, when you plug in components that do this vision language model detection based on the components, I think this is what it can really help.
So my prediction would be that many of these techniques, which are used in like fully neural rendering of computer games, or in world models, which basically build up a physical model out of digital imagery, are going to make their way very soon into this digital twin world.
Interesting. Yeah.
We'll see. It's a prediction. Number 11, maybe. Predictive maintenance is, of course, also important. Like downtime because of failure is the major frustration of manufacturing. So also an item from Siemens here.
Yeah, and this was a very big piece on, I think, TechCrunch, on how Siemens is kind of pioneering here on how AI can kind of notify and help humans take some load off and alert them with sentient recommendations on what needs to be checked effectively.
So really classical predictive maintenance, but not run in the data science lab, but in the factory with human in the loop.
And we see kind of the benefits that you get here in terms of efficiency and increasing control and less defects going through.
All right, so let's move on to our second interview that we recorded here at on the trade show floor. It was at Beckhoff Automation. Beckhoff Automation, by the way, secret insider tip, has the best party of the whole Hannover Messe on their booth. Beckhoff does basically controllers and switching gear for automating factories, and one of their products is TwinCat, a kind of design tool and a development studio for programming these devices. And they have recently released their TwinCat Co-Agent, which is an agentic AI conversational
Copilot.
assistant, a co-pilot, which helps engineers program PLC devices. What is the main difference between your tool and, let's say, more generalistic, coding assistants?
I would say, yeah, it's comparable on the part. When you go to PLC, for example, then we also create code. We have some tasks to solve. Our language is IC 61131. It's not so high represented in the data sets they train the models on.
Yeah, so Claude is very good at coding, for example, right?
Yeah, and it's
But-
also not bad at coding for PLCs.
Yeah.
But we do have to do some in addition to make it known to some samples, for example. And yeah,
And
we
so
start
how
on the fronting side to make the results even more better, because it's not so high represented.
And so what are some of the AI techniques that you have used? You don't have access to the Claude weights, right? So you cannot fine tune it for PLC. So you must add the knowledge in some other way.
Yeah, of course, we use RAG, for example,
Right.
for our database. So when we want to make it known to our documentation, and we now use I would say, agentic RAG approach.
Yeah.
So we give a tool to the agent, and he can decide if you want to look up tools. And even, I would say, Sumé is very good at doing explorable searches. So you start with the first search, get the result, and you look at this, what he's getting there, and maybe do a search in addition to get even more better results.
Right.
Yeah, so I think what he describes is a very traditional application of RAG, where you really need to enhance the model's capabilities in domains that it's really not that general purpose for everyone to be able to use out of the box.
Yeah. But I think it's also a very nice example of an agentic application where you have different agents for documentation, for coding, and for other functionalities. And they also have tools and are kind of specialized to this industrial domain. And I think it's also a true proof by existence that AI agents are not just hype. They're being incorporated into real products with very wide audiences right now.
Yeah, and I think just as a throwback to what we said in the last episode, it's a lot of this feedback and iteration that a language model won't do in one shot, that it needs to kind of have an estimate of what the impact was, if there was an error, and go back, think again, and produce a final result.
So check out the interview with Yannis Dopmeyer. He's the product manager, machine learning for TwinCat at Beckhoff Automation. It's going to be on our YouTube channel really soon, or is it already there?
Already.
It's already there. Check it out. And if you're not into PLC programming, but swarm intelligence, this is a paper, or what?
Yeah, it is a paper.
Yeah.
So let's get into a bit of a more geeky section of what is actually being used in the past 3 to 6 months in terms of research.
I have to stop you here a little bit. I went through all the halls, but everywhere I saw Industry 4.0. It's right there on the wall. We see a lot of fora and panel discussions about Industry 4.0. So what the hell is Industry 6.0? Did they skip a version number or something?
I'm actually not too sure where 5.0 went, but from what I read in this paper,
it's like the 01 and the 03 model. It's like
exactly.
Industry 5 was already
5
taken.
was taken. Yeah, so what they propose here, I guess, in contrast to 4.0, 6.0 is about fully autonomous manufacturing. 4.0, from my understanding, is kind of this human AI collaboration. This kind of takes us to more, visionary and extreme version of manufacturing. And what they propose here is a kind of multi-agent swarm of robots.
Physical robots. Yeah. So we're not talking about AI agents like the ones we were discussing, but sort of the embodiment version
of it. Yeah. So, but it still uses generative AI as its backbone of communication.
Yeah.
And the kind of purpose of this pipeline of robots that they propose in this paper is to manage the design and manufacturing process.
Yeah.
And using natural language inputs from the engineers and the designers.
Yeah.
And some tasks that you can see here in the figures is like blueprint design, component manufacturing, assembly, and the goal is to just reduce the end-to-end time of this whole process.
Incorporate 3D printers, even delivery through drones and all these kind of things, right?
Yeah, and I think in the next bit we have also a kind of benchmark that they run comparing human involvement versus fully autonomous execution. And then this system did this one task in just about 200 seconds, where humans will take 4 times that. And even in CAD operators, the blueprinting was faster by a huge difference here.
Yeah, but actually, in the assembly, the robots are still a bit clumsy. There is something to be improved here,
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, I did see that a lot in this fair here. Actually, a lot of robots are being traditionally used, but I guess it's on a fully autonomous basis. They are not reliable yet.
So the fully humanoid robots are also not in this picture. We predicted they would not take off in 2025. I remain with that prediction. But I think also the sort of new generation of more, more autonomous arm robots, etc., and other form factors will still need to come out of the lab.
Yeah, I think what we can take away from here is like design and ideation can really benefit from this generative swarm intelligence, while actually delivering and assembling it is where humans can really intervene. Because if something goes wrong, these models are not really generalist enough to kind of get out of all the situations.
Well, that's sort of the current state of the art, but I think it's also a huge opportunity for
and
developing.
we see a lot of big tech investing in this technology.
So this is a multi-agent framework without robots.
Right. This is specifically for car and engineering design. So what they propose here is a multi-agent framework that is.
Some of these new cars are just damn ugly.
So I don't know if this is a product of this or if this is meant to prevent it. But what they're doing here is they want to enhance the creativity of the designers. So the system is just creating conceptual sketches, 3D aerodynamic simulations that can be intertwined and interplayed with these engineering tools that people are already using.
Yeah.
And this is just meant to mostly reduce the design time and go through a lot of these simulations to propose the final or at first the candidate to the engineers to further take on into this.
Yeah, so I think people in Europe are not so keen to buy Teslas anymore. Is that news for you? And I would be happy to buy like a higher end electric Volkswagen like the ID 5 or 7, but it needs a bit of this. So definitely Teslas are still pretty sleek designs.
Yeah, one thing I like from this here is you can see it enables people that don't have a lot of like creativity or a lot of familiarity with these programs to just quickly sketch something and take it through to, on a very traditional pipeline of generating something, simulating it, creating the mesh, doing some of the tunneling simulations and so on.
Yeah. So check out, it's a paper on Archive also.
Yeah.
Multi-agent framework for aesthetic and aerodynamic car design. So what the hell is this?
Right, so I think
what does MILP stand for? Let's start with that.
Yeah, MILP stands for Mixed Integer Linear Programming. So it's kind of just writing simulation code for task allocation and scheduling.
Yeah.
And yeah, this paper is like just enhancing language models with domain-specific knowledge to just generate schedules and assist robots in creating complex tasks in manufacturing. And
it's a DeepSeek-based work, right?
Yes, I think so. It's based on R1, one of the distills of R1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what they do is they add domain-specific knowledge to generate executable code from natural language prompts, kind of like this example we saw from Beckhoff.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just show a bit of a high accuracy in capturing the constraints from the human prompt and also generating code that can be executed. And I think some of the domains that they test this on is aircraft skin manufacturing, and they have a lot of emphasis on just doing this on-prem.
Cool. So here's the diagram, right?
Yeah, and they use this Quen coder and in combination with DeepSeek. Again, a lot of Chinese models, as you might notice.
Yeah, it's
but I think the authors are also from China.
Yeah. Well, China is producing, I think, more cars than Germany by now. And this is the last
Yeah,
paper, I
just
think,
as a
in
last shout out, I found this also very interesting, is generating a scene that takes place in a factory. So this is a very complex implementation based on point clouds. So they
do you
just
have a
want,
picture
I
with
think
that?
so, yes.
Okay, so let's
Yeah,
bring
so
up the picture.
the idea is that they use point cloud to have a high fidelity generation of digital simulation in an industrial setting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just trying to avoid a lot of the segmentation problems and kind of detailed challenges that traditional models could not get right.
So the point cloud is generated using what technology?
It's based on the transformer architecture.
Right, and also it's actually like a predicted point cloud rather
Yes.
than a perceived point cloud. Okay, and I think this is getting pretty close to a digital twin of this manufacturing location, right? So yeah, check it out if you're interested in point clouds in the manufacturing world. And that brings us to the end of our show here from Hannover Messe, and we have something very non-Hannover Messe because it's very much about mathematics and theory. But obviously, all of the innovation here is based on science, is based on hard engineering and technology and mathematics, right? It helps to, if you can do the calculation right.
I mean, it's a kind of a very grounded benchmark. You know, if the model gets it right, there's no excuse on it was close enough.
So I think sort of since '01, right, we've seen AIM, the mathematical competition data set, be used as the sort of key of defining logical reasoning quality of these models, right? And we've seen like a very steep increase on the AIM scores, and I think here.
Yeah, I think this is showing the performance
AIM.
of.
This is not AIM. This is actually International Mathematical Olympiad, and this is a from Google
Gemini.
DeepMind's Gemini, and they claim that basically the system comes in a very high percentile of upper silver level medalists. But you always have to keep a critical stance, especially in science and engineering. And just last week, this paper came out from a bunch of people at ETH Zurich and Sophia University. The paper is called Proof or Bluff, Evaluating LLMs on the 2025 USA Math Olympiad. So what they did is basically a few hours after the new assignments for the 25 Math Olympiad were published, they tested all these models on them that have claimed very high scores on AIM.
Okay, so we have pretty high expectations, right?
Well, it was a bit of a deception. So, in fact, no single model came above 2% scores, whereas in in the papers that were published before, we saw some very high double-digit scores.
Yeah, I think my favorite line from this is actually O1 Pros, where you see a cost of 200 and the total accuracy is about 1%.
Right.
Which is pretty
so
funny.
Yeah, it actually has the token cost here. There's a 100-fold increase in cost and actually a decrease in performance. Yeah. So yeah, keep your critical perspective, and I think human engineering and science still has a way to go before we solve these problems in AI. And with that, we want to thank you for tuning into Trends in AI live from the Hannover Messe. And check out Zeta Alpha. We build AI systems for technology and R&D and innovation intensive industries to discover and organize their proprietary knowledge. Our platform powers GenAI teams to build RAG and AI agents that can go into production reliably and quickly. And yeah, this was our April Trends in AI. Check out our events page with the QR code to find all the interviews that we mentioned and the recording of this episode and the next ones, and follow us on all the usual media channels. And if you are a researcher or an engineer in AI, also do check out the Zeta Alpha platform, because we index very conveniently all the AI papers that we discussed.
Yeah, and if you're in Hannover tomorrow, come by our booth in Hannover Messe.
And also for enterprise, we make these kind of things possible. Thanks, and have a great evening
Thanks,
or
everyone.
day.
See you next time.